In a small, unremarkable town tucked into the fold of an overlooked American state, routine was not just a habit but a climate. Houses repeated themselves down the street like copied lines of poem. Porches sagged in the same places, and dogs barked at the same time passing trucks. In that town lived Tom, a boy who made a science of being unseen, blending into corners, choosing the third desk from the back, and becoming as natural as a wall when groups formed. He lived in the kind of silence that gathered like dust in the lungs, a quiet so total that even his footsteps sounded apologetic. The morning that will split his life in two began with the same alarm tone at 6:45 a.m. and the same three-beat snooze he allowed himself. The kitchen air contained the receding ghost of coffee his mother had brewed before leaving for the dinner. On the fridge, a magnet held a coupon for windshield wipers. Beside it, a band photo showed Tom at 5 years old, cheeks terrifically round, eyes bright with the energy of a future that had since thinned. He shouldered his worn backpack and stepped into the air that smelled faintly of damp leaves and parking lot oil. His walk to school traced a route he could have followed blindfolded past the abandoned video store with the broken neon RNTLS, past the tire shop with its stacked rubber monuments across the crosswalk whose white paint had cracked like river ice. The sky wore an ordinary gray, the kind that usually promised nothing at all. Tom counted the breaths between traffic lights and cuffed himself, hoping for nothing unusual. Nothing unusual means safety, and safety, to Tom, meant invisibility. The school building waited at the town's edge like a retired factory, brick-faced and dim-eyed. Inside, the fluorescent lights hissed their chronic disapproval. Exam day had turned the halls into aquariums. Mouths opened and closed in silent rehearsal. Pupils darted like fish. Tom kept to the perimeter, touching lockers as if each were a rung in a ladder. He reached his classroom, slipped into the familiar chair at back, and arranged his pencils parallel to the desk edge. The ritual was a sedative his pulse slowed. When the exam papers came, they smelled faintly of toner and heat. The questions, while not simple, lined up neatly with the grooves in Tom's mind, and his pencil found the answers like a dowsing rod finds water. He wrote calmly, his breathing even, aware of class around him as a soft pressure calf's sleeve rustle, the teacher's chair creaking like a ship in slow water. He felt for once certain. Certainty was a rare and excellent drug. He finished in 19 minutes by the clock on the wall, an act that earned him a raised eyebrow from the teacher and a flicker of attention from several students. Handing in the paper, he felt the room's curiosity like a draft against his skin. He smiled without showing teeth, a smile designed to confuse anyone who tried to interpret it, and walked out, every step measured to avoid squeaks from the battered linoleum. The hallway beyond the classroom had a breath. Tom's shoes tapped the floor in neat syllables as he moved toward the restroom. He washed his hands as if cleansing himself of attention, watching water leap from the faucet in clear. Obedient arcs for a heartbeat in the metal lip of the sink. He was a tiny second image of himself, like a fraction of a second behind the real gesture. A reflection glitch, he blamed the light, and left before the idea could root. He was halfway to exterior doors when the small gravity of an error tugged at him. Dejected, he had left it on the back of his chair. Returning felt trivial. A chore already accomplished in his mind. He turned and traced the corridor back, noticing nothing more unusual than a gum wrapper locked against a baseboard. The light above the classroom door flickered once, a slow blink, before burning steady again. He knocked softly and, receiving no answer, pushed the door open. The room was immaculate and unoccupied. Air flat with the smell of dry erase marker and dust. Chairs had tucked themselves in the teacher's desk, was bare and terrifyingly symmetrical. The clocks, second hand, jerked forward, stalled, jerked forward, stalled. Tom took his jacket, and in absence of any sensible explanation, he became the explanation, a body in a room, breathing the only sound. When he stepped into the corridor again, silence thickened, acquiring weight and the temperature. He leaned into other classroom windows as he passed. Every room was empty. Pens lay like tiny bones beside notebooks. A backpack sat yawning open with half its contents out. A pencil box upturned, a stick of gum on the floor as if someone had been about to pick it up. A single overhead projector cast a square of light on a blank wall. Humming to itself, Tom walked faster, and the building did not object. The front doors pushed open with their familiar groan, and bright noon light fell in a clean sheet. Outside, the parking lot displayed 32 cars, but none of them dripped heat from their hoods, none of their interiors showed the trembling of air. The flagpole rope pulsed in a motion that implied without any accompanying breeze. The quiet had a structure to it, like a tent you could walk into and get lost inside. On his walk home, he found evidence not of disaster but of interruption. A lone sprinkler spun in a perfect crescent, water beads suspended in their arc as if time had become viscous. A grocery bag lay on a porch step, a bulb of garlic escaping its paper skin beside a bruised tomato. A school bus idled at a four-way stop. Lights off, door half open, its interior as empty as a story between scenes. Tom tried his phone, full bars, no data, a frozen clock. He tried again, the time did not advance. He entered his house without the comfort of routine. Habit had nothing to grip. His mother's favorite mug collected, a skin of cold, on top of unfinished coffee. The radio delivered only a soft hiss, but when he turned the dial, he found patches in the static that rose and fell like breath. On the halfway table sat his father's ring of case, the brass dulled at the edges from use. Every object maintained the pose of use without users. He called out the name Mom, sounding embarrassingly young in his throat. No answer came back, unless you counted the house's creaks as a language. He checked each room, as if certifying their emptiness for a report. His parents' bedroom was pristinely made. A bedspread tucked into place with his mother's square-handed neatness. The bathroom smelled faintly of eucalyptus shampoo in his own room. The fence chain had wrapped itself around the neck of the glass pool. As if stranged by a slow breeze, he sat on the edge of his bed and listened to the little behind-the-wall sound. Plumbing clicks, wood shifts, the soft tick of something cooling. The world was still here, only unpeopled. He turned on the television, and the screen obligingly filled with snow. The audio swelled, bassy and deep enough to make a picture frame rattle. For a second, no more, the static arranged itself into an image, a hallway that might have been his own school's empty, too bright. Then it collapsed back into blizzard. When he turned the TV off, it stayed on for a breath, like a stubborn thought, and then died. In the black mirror of the screen, he saw his face resolve and then sharpen, as if coming to a decision. Dusk bled in draw the blind slowly, painting the walls with the anticlimax of orange and gray. They wrote a series of possibilities on the pad beside the phone. Evacuation, gas leak, drill, and crossed each one out. He ate 2 slices of bread with peanut butter, not because he was hungry, but because eating made a noise. He washed the plate immediately, because clean plates mean that the day had edges. Night fell like a door closing softly. Tom froze halfway, drew a step, the house pausing with him. as if it, too, listened. He climbed the stairs with his flashlight in hand, counting each tread in a whispers to prevent his mind from counting other things that would be worse. The hallway smelled like his childhood. Hot dust, a distant hint of his mother's perfume, something else he could not name. The tapping stopped as he reached his parents' room. The door stood slightly open, the gap a vertebra of darkness. He nudged it, and the flashlight caught the bag, the dresser, the mirror. He was careful not to shine the beam directly into the mirror's face. Some private superstition raised its hand and asked him not to. He listened, and the house made the normal sounds of a structure in the cool, settling, stretching. He almost laughed at himself, almost. The laugh remained unborn, because through the window he saw a figure near the tree line, a compact, crouched silhouette, not quite animal, not quite human, retreating in a series of jerks into deeper dark. He cut the light and stood still, letting his eyes widen. Nothing moved for a long time. When he switched the flashlight back on, the figure had become a negative, a place where his attention went and returned empty handed. Dawn arrived reluctantly, the light pale as if it had lost an argument elsewhere. The sky wore a greenish glaze, a fragile sickness. Tom stepped outside with the aching determination of a person who must do a thing because doing nothing would hollow him. He visited the places that indexed the town's memory, the barber with its spiraling pole, the bakery with the cracked bell over the door, the town square with its clock tower that had not kept correct time since before he was born. The clock now displayed 2:70 and seemed offended by the idea of change. Beneath the clock, among cigarettes butts and a fallen poster for a last moment's bluegrass night, he found a notebook. The leather had split on the spine like a mouth that had tried and failed to speak. He opened it and discovered handwriting done at speed, letters leaning, lines sloping, ink blotted. Where the pen had outrun the hand, he read, they vanish when the light bends. And then, it's not them who disappeared, it's the reflection that stayed. He read until the words felt like an incantation mispronounced. The next page offered sketches that looked rough during transit, a rectangle labeled surface arrows pushing through, a humanoid shape crossing the threshold both ways at once. Beside one drawing a note, avoid direct gaze at mirrored planes after dusk, delay accumulates. The word delay unnerved him. It suggested like a late echo, a footstep that did not align with the original. On the last page, if your images move after you don't run. He returned home and, obeying a primal whisper in his bones rather than logic, covered every mirror with towels and sheets. He draped the TV screen. He turned framed photographs face down, the way people do when a house mourns. The rooms dimmed without his own face bouncing back at him. His sense of location softened. He moved like a diver under silted water. Even the windows acquired the dignity of something you should not address by name. Yet the shadows began to descend. He raised his right hand at the edge of his vision. His shadow hesitated, a child refusing to be dragged somewhere, and then complied. He turned his head. The silhouette waited a beat, as if finishing a thought, before turning too. He performed these experiments until the experiments started performing him. Finally, trying to trick the darkness, he smiled suddenly. The shadow smiled wider, revealing teeth he could not possibly have. Objects developed personalities. The lamp by the couch flickered not with the randomness of a failing bulb, but with the cadence of attention. On longer when he looked off, when he didn't. The old upright piano in the dining room, whose strings had mildewed into a metallic cough years ago, emitted one solemn, Note at 3:06 a.m. Tone so pure and wrong that Tom wept without permission. Somewhere beyond the walls, Wind rehearsed a language that sounded like a whispering when you wanted comfort and like whispering when you did not. He braved the library, its glass door politely closed, lights half on. Inside, the security sensors at the entrance blinked a pattern he had never noticed: long, long, short, long, like a signal meant for someone with the correct receiver. In the reference section, a computer remained awake. On its screen, a document repeated a single line, thousands of times in perfect columns. We are all accounted for. The phrase became untrue draw repetition. Tom hit escape, and the monitor returned a screensaver of drifting pipes that soon began to resemble bones. He gathered clues with the reverence of a pilgrim. In the grocery store, a single register receipt curled in slow motion toward the floor as though gravity were being negotiated. In the post office, a row of P.O. boxes stood open like mouths mid-song. He discovered his own name tagged from a volunteer day 2 summers ago in a drawer where it could not logically be. He slid it into his pocket. It felt both like proof and like a trap. Late that afternoon, he found the white van. It sat behind the school, tires clean of dust, as if it had arrived after the disappearance, but not driving an inch since. Its side panel bore a pellet of logo, rectangular adhesive residue claiming one's allegiance to a company. The rear doors were not locked. Inside he smelled cold metal, oil, and something almost sweet. There were straps hanging from the walls, each ending in a loop. There was also a folded sheet of reflective film, the kind used for insulation or emergency blankets. He backed out slowly, closed the doors gently, and told himself he had seen less than he had. That night the tapping did not return, but a new sound did, a slow scrape in the ceiling, as if furniture up there were being rearranged by someone who had never learned the human rhythm of moving heavy things. The scrape stopped when he stepped under it and resumed when he moved away. He paced the hall until the pattern surrendered, and then he lay awake until morning, staring at the texture of the ceiling and seeing in it maps to countries where people might still be. He decided on a method. The next day he would visit 3 places at exact intervals. At exact intervals, clock tower, school, his home, and track any changes. He wrote times down, even though clocks had become opinionated. He spoke the plan aloud in the kitchen as if briefing others. Hearing his voice in habit language gave him courage. It rang again as soon as he stepped outside into the town's thin daylight, but he protected the ember of it. At the clock tower 270, unwavering, a small moth had trapped itself in the face, beating tiny dust halos into the glass. Tom waved at it by instinct and felt foolish immediately after. At the school classroom's doors opened that had been closed, a pencil rolling lazily along a desk until it reached the lip, and then refusing to fall. In the hallway, a glint caught his attention, a fragment of mirror no longer than a coin. He covered it with his shoe and left it there, unwilling to learn which of them would move first. Home offered both sanctuary and indictment. On the kitchen table lay the notebook he had found. Opened to a page he did not remember reading. The handwriting matched the rest, but the tone had changed, cooler, cleaner. If they took the originals, what's left is rehearsal. The world is practicing being the world. Some rehearsals never end. He shut the book and felt the house breathing, as if to say, careful which pages you wake. He dreamed during a nap he did not mean to have. In the dream, he was seated at the classroom desk, and the teacher wrote an equation on the board that started with his name: Tom plus Tom plus Tom equal 1. When he raised his hand to ask a question, 3 hands rose in the room, and none belonged to him. He walked to the piano, producing the exact note it had the night before. He said aloud, "No," and the sound stopped like an obedient dog. That evening, as dusk complied itself, the reflections returned to lobbying for attention. In the black eye of the TV, his profile turned before he did. In the blank glass of the microwave door, a mouth shaped the word, help with leisurely lips. He covered both with towels. When he passed the hallway mirror, already shrouded, he felt a pressure behind the cloth, a presence straining tight against the fabric as a breath fogs glass. He did not remove the cloth, he did not run. He sat on the stairs and waited for the night to choose its weapon. The weapon was not sound this time but a correction. His house rearranged itself by inches while he blinked. The lamp shifted 1 degree to the left. The rug's corner moved into a curl. Painting hung lower by a nail's thickness. He tested a theory. He placed a spoon crosswise on the counter and stared at it without blinking until his eyes watered. It remained, when he looked away for the briefest moment, less than a comma. The spoon rotated 90 degrees. He whispered, "I see you." And every light in the house went out with the politeness of a curtain falling at the end of a play. Darkness made new rooms inside old ones. He navigated by a memory and the faint gray that leaked from the windows. As he passed the hallway mirror, the cloth sagged. A shape pressed outward from beneath, forehead first, then nose, then a grin drawn too long. He backed into the wall and slid sideways like a man dodging a slow train. In the living room window, the outside did not align with the actual outside. The street appeared crowded with the people standing at measured distance, all looking at the house. When he dared a glance out of the actual window, the street was empty. When he looked back at the glass, the people were closer. At exactly 2:70 a.m., because that was the time, now even at night. The front door handle turned with tired courtesy. Tom had locked it. He had bolted. Still it turned as if locks were a friendly suggestion. The door never opened. The handle simply rotated once, then twice, and then rested. He watched it for 20 minutes, breath shallow, and no other movement came. He did not sleep. He memorized the arrangement of shadows and dared them by not blinking. Morning assembled itself out of scraps. He showered because clean skin was an argument for reality. In the fogged bathroom mirror he could see only a smear of himself, when a clear over blossomed on the glass at face height, an absence in the fog where no hand had touched. He closed his eyes and counted to 30. When he opened them, the oval had shifted 3 inches left, as though whatever watched had misjudged where they stood. He returned to the clock tower. The mouth had died, a small brown punctation mark on the white of the face. A man's coat lay across the bench under the tower. One sleeve turned inside out like a lip. In its pocket he found a torn slip of paper with a phrase typed on an old machine. Test 19. Post-exposure coherence acceptable. The words made the hairs on his arms rise one by one. He looked up into the tower's notch, where a maintenance hatch gaped a tuft of leathers and decision. He left the coat on the bench like an offering he could withdraw later. At school he found the white one again, this time with a single difference. The passenger visor had been flipped down to reveal a mirror the size of a hand. Someone had drawn a circle of ash on it, and the ash was the print of a thumb that looked almost, but not exactly, like his own. He shut the visor up with more force than necessary. On the asphalt nearby, sunlight puddled without warming anything. He whispered, "I'm here," and the voice from nowhere answered, perfectly matched to his tone, "I'm here." He ran as much to change the conversation as to escape the town obliged by holding still. Back home, he opened the notebook and found new lines in new ink. "You are not alone, only multiplied," the others learned. Some rehearsals improved. He wrote below it with a trembling pen. Who wrote this? The page did not answer, but when he closed the notebook and opened it again, the question had been copied twice more, the handwriting patiently worse each time. The next night arrived not as a continuation, but as a replacement. The temperature dropped without air moving. A tone too low to be truly heard laid a carpet for the hours. In the living room window, the crowd was back, their faces clearer, version of Tom at various ages, hair lengths, shirt colors, expressions, all maintaining the polite stillness of people waiting for transportation. The real street beyond remained empty. Tom raised a hand. One version raised a hand exactly out of sync. Another smiled. A third stared at him with such raw pity that he almost broke the glass just to ask what it now. The sound from behind the towel dropped hallway mirror changed from breath to speech, no words, only the shapes of them. Vowels rounded, consonants chewed. For a brave moment Tom leaned close enough to feel cool radiance from the glass. He said no. It said something too, but the meaning took the long route, drove his spine rather than his ears. Come drove. He was relieved to discover that relief was still a thing he could feel when he stepped back. He woke on the 40th day, if days were still countable, to the puzzle already solved for him. His house had reversed. The couch that had faced the TV now faced the window. The lamp switched sides. Even the rock displayed its faded corner where the other corner should be. He turned in a slow circle and realized he was standing in a reflection. He shouted once, a short animal cry, and something downstairs chuckled in the decay of static. Panic is a tool if one can hold it properly. Tom aimed it at the staircase and descended 2 steps at a time, heart punching, eyes watering. The front hall had narrowed by inches on either side, the way a dream hallway does when your legs get heavy. On the front door hung a new thing, a tag, like those attached to the model case, stamped with the number 17. He knew, with the bleak certainty that accompanies bad math, that this matched the clock's minute hand. He took the tag and pocketed it, and almost asked aloud, what happens at 18? Outside again, because the air there felt less opinionated. He'd returned to clock tower and climbed the maintenance ladder he had pretended not to notice. The hatch resisted and then relented, as if weighing his seriousness. Inside, among dust and detritus of repairs, sat a portable generator off and a stack of silvered film squares like the one of the van. He found a clipboard, grids of initials, dates, check marks. One column header read refraction threshold, another said human factors. The last entry had every box ticked plus a note. Successful wall town captured during exam cycle. Minimal interference variables. Tom's throat closed as if he had swallowed a small town. He understood, without licking it, that his ordinary life, his predictability, his punctual exam completion, had been chosen not by accident, by design. The town had been a set, primed for a trick in the light. He thought of the ash circle on the visor mirror, of the moth that died at 2:17 on the clock's face, of the way the wine smelled sweet. He thought of rehearsals that go on after opening night, of performances without audiences. When he climbed down, the street contained him and only him. He walked home in the posture of a person who expects to be copied. Inside, the towel had fallen from the hallway mirror. He could have sworn he had taped it. The glass showed the hallway, yes, but also minute improvements, sharper aids, colors more saturated. The kind of detail you only notice when something has learned how to be convincing. His reflection arrived a breath late, then another reflection joined it, stepping into frame from the side, with Tom's face set into a smile that did not belong to him. The second Tom lifted a hand as if waving from a train. Behind him in the mirror hallway, other Toms peered around the doorway, stacked like a chorus, some curious, some bored, one tearful. The nearest smiled wider, exposing too many teeth, and the glass temperature dropped against Tom's skin. When he stepped back, the reflection stepped forward. It placed its palm to the inside of the glass. On his side, a funk print bloomed exactly where his palm would be if he had raised it. He did not. He thought of the notebook's warning: if your image moves after you don't, run. He turned to run. The world stuttered. Static pried the air apart. The house flung itself backward, forward, backward, and he was on the floor of his classroom, the bell ringing, the scrape of chairs friendly as rain. The teacher frowned. Students stood. Everything retreaded itself into normal. He laughed once, sound that felt counterfeit. He reached for his jacket, relieved in a way that hurt. His hand found a pocket, and the cool familiarity of an object he had never owned before, a model-style key tag stamped 17. When he looked up, the classroom window reflected the room back at him. Rows of desks, sunlight skewed across linoleum, a boy in the last row rising to leave. The boy in the window lifted his hand to wave a fraction of a second before Tom did, and smiled a practiced, patient smile that said the rehearsal was over and the performance had begun again.